Hi everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I'll be talking about the Dawes and Young plans of 1924 and 1929, which are very useful for IGCSE and A-level history. So let's begin. Okay, so both the Dawes and the Young plans were economic plans. They were plans aimed at helping rebuild or stabilize Germany's economy, and they mainly dealt with reparations. So before we talk about the Dawes and Young plan, it's important to understand Germany's situation in the 1920s. At the Genoa Conference of 1922, Germany claims that they cannot pay reparations, they're physically unable to after the war, and they try to get concessions from the French. And specifically, they request a 3-year moratorium on payments. A moratorium is basically a break, so they request to take a break from paying the reparations for 3 years. France refuses to grant this, and as a result, Germany, which still claims they cannot pay, missed a few of the payments. I think they missed 2 or 3 payments. The French cabinet decides to occupy the Ruhr industrial region. The Ruhr industrial region is the industrial region of Germany that almost borders with France, and it is Germany's most important industrial region. So they occupied in 1923 to seize reparations by force in kind. In kind basically means they will seize the products of these factories and the industries by force, just like that, so they don't have to take reparations from the German government. Because of this, Germany went through a massive hyperinflation crisis and its economy nearly entirely collapsed. The German government just printed a bunch of money so they could pay the striking workers and try and pay off their debts, and this led to massive hyperinflation. So Chancellor Stresemann sought a negotiated reparations settlement after this to try and solve the issues. By the way, if you want a more detailed video on Germany's hyperinflation crisis and the occupation of the Ruhr, I'll have another video up soon. Okay, so on to the actual Dawes Plan. The Dawes Plan in 1924 was an American-led plan by financier Charles G. Dawes. So it's this gentleman over here with France. So it was with France, Germany, the USA, Britain, Italy, and Belgium. And its main agreements were signed at the London Conference. The total reparation figure was kept the same, so 132 billion gold marks, the same as it had been established by the Treaty of Versailles. However, they offered more lenient rates of installments for 5 years, which basically means the Germans could pay less for 5 years, and then later they'd go on to paying full rates of reparation. This would allow some time for their economy to recover, get back on its feet before paying full reparations again. These installments were guaranteed by revenues from German railways and other industries, and so in a way that Germany couldn't evade paying installments again. And the USA, importantly, the USA gives $800 million in loans to Germany to also help get the German economy back on its feet. The Reichsbank and the Reichsmark were introduced to help replace the value of the previous mark, which had lost all its value due to the hyperinflation crisis, and France and Belgium committed to fully evacuating the Ruhr immediately. Okay, so what were the other reasons for the Dawes Plan? So obviously the main reason was most explicit reason was to stabilize Germany's economy. However, some of the other more implied reasons and other motivations that powers had for negotiating the Dawes Plan was preventing Germany from falling into communist hands. This was at the time when Russia had already undergone its communist revolution, and the government was completely communist. So a lot of governments saw, especially the ones of Western Europe, saw this as a threat, as a huge threat. So they believed that if they helped stabilize Germany's economy, there would be less discontent and less radical politics. And by radical politics, I mean radical left, which means there would be less chance of Germany falling to communism. It was also a new arrangement for Germany's reparation payments after World War I, and it was also to end the conflict over reparations, which nearly escalated to open war in the Ruhr. The striking workers were shot upon by the French troops, and there was just a lot of conflict going on, so they wanted to avoid that. What were their reactions to the Dawes Plan? Well, Britain is enthusiastic about US finally being involved in matters and affairs on the continent. After World War I, the US famously pursues isolationism, which basically means they isolate themselves from Europe's problems, Europe's affairs, And now we can see them again trying to get back into it. So, and they also saw it as a good way of preventing communism from spreading westwards, which Britain was very worried about. However, France is a bit skeptical. They wanted to enforce German payments, and they never really wanted to give any concessions to Germany in the first place. So they're not too sure. They just want their money. They're not too sure how giving concessions to Germany will get them their money. However, Germany is also skeptical because the total reparation figure wasn't reduced. So a lot of German people weren't really much happier. And it also placed key railways and industries under foreign control, which the Germans were also not too happy about. The outcomes of the Dawes Plan was that it created a brief period of economic recovery. The years following the Dawes Plans were called the golden years of the Weimar Republic, from 1924 to 1929. So basically until the Dawes Plan, from when the Dawes Plan was negotiated and the hyperinflation crisis ended, partially thanks to that, and then until 1929 when the Great Depression breaks out. These golden years were under Gustav Stresemann, which is this gentleman over here. Unemployment fell, the economy and currency stabilized, the war and reparation issues were settled. However, importantly, which we'll see in the next couple slides, is that they involved a very heavy reliance on foreign capital. As I mentioned before, part of the Dawes Plan was an $800 loan from the US to Germany. And this all doesn't work out great. And we can see the same thing for the Young Plan as well, but this doesn't work out too great as we see when the Great Depression comes. So now on to the Young Plan of 1929. The Young Plan was an economic plan, just like the Dawes Plan, aimed to reach a permanent solution to the German reparation issue, replacing the Dawes Plan and consolidating German economic growth. So the Dawes Plan was just meant to be temporary. It gave Germany some leniency on repayments for 5 years, and when those 5 years were over, in 1929, we can see that they tried to negotiate a new permanent settlement. This involved USA, France, Germany, Britain, Italy, and Belgium, the same countries that were involved before. The agreements reached at the Young Plan was that they reduced the overall reparation figure by 20 billion gold marks. So from 132 billion gold marks, it goes down to 112 billion gold marks. It also extended the due date of reparation payments. So now they had 58 years left to pay reparations. They also removed the international control that had been placed from the Dawes Plan over German railways and key industries. The last foreign troops also left Germany, so basically the French and Belgian troops that occupied the Ruhr. And also more loans from the USA were established that Germany really utilized to their fullest to help get the economy back on their feet. Now, obviously we talk about the failure of the Young Plan. The Young Plan, on first sight, now that I'm explaining the agreements, it seems much more promising than the Dawes Plan. There's much more change that goes about the Young Plan. But how come the Dawes Plan was successful, whereas the Young Plan obviously ultimately ended up in failure? Because even though both the Dawes and the Young Plans allowed for Germany to recover economically and experience periods of growth, this was over-reliant on American loans. So Germany really utilized to their fullest the American loans that they were given to rebuild their economy, to the point that they were reliant on them, they needed them. However, in 1929, the Great Depression hits the US, and they quickly take back and stop giving loans to Germany. So Germany, suddenly, all these loans are taken from her, and they stop coming in. And Germany, which is so dependent on these loans, doesn't know how to respond. In fact, they are hit extremely severely by the Great Depression, which ends the golden years of the Republic. There's a catastrophic rise in unemployment. So many businesses and industries are bankrupt, and we see the rise of political extremism, which I'll be talking about in one of my future videos, ultimately leads to the rise of Hitler. There's so much discontent, so much poverty, so much unemployment that people are so unhappy that they turn to political extremism. And many people start supporting the Nazi Party. It's in these years, the Nazi Party existed throughout all these years, but it is after 1929 that the Nazi Party starts gaining more and more support. So, thank you for watching this YouTube video. That is all. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments down below. If you have any recommendations for any future videos, also let me know. And yeah, please subscribe.